Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we finally have from Jamie XX, In Waves. I think it's fair to say that Jamie XX caught lightning in a bottle with In Color in 2015, the sort of textured, damn near cinematic house music that didn't reinvent the wheel, but captured a zeitgeist so perfectly that it holds up to this day, utterly nailing the textural balance between the expanse of that music festival and the remarkably intimate and emotional. I'll freely admit it was a gateway point for me to experience so much more electronic music, especially on the more ambient-leaning side. On that basis, almost feels like a personal classic of that decade. And then from then, well, we got another album from the XX, and Jamie XX kept playing and remixing music, and he had a credit on that excellent Rami album from last year, but it's been 9 years, and after watching him largely sidestep In Color in favor of a more conventional electronic set headlining Pitchfork this year, and the singles of this new album didn't exactly wow me, my expectations for In Waves felt a lot lower than even I expected, and thus hearing the album now, yeah, that might have been a fair assessment, as In Waves feels less like a follow-up to In Color and more like an increasingly jumbled flow of solidly immediate, vocal sample heavy, if scratchy house cuts that feel better suited as singles in a tight, sweaty boiler room than the composite whole. In fact, In Color is probably the wrong comparison entirely, with a broader array of guest stars including the Avalanches, Panda Bear, A$AP Rocky, Robyn, and Honey Dijon, alongside the XX returning for just one song. It feels a bit like a remix compilation of itself, and while there is some connective melodic tissue tenuously linking some of these songs to flow together, the atmosphere is considerably more claustrophobic and spare, focusing on the jittery, quaking percussion than the gradual melodic shifts that made In Color feel so special to me. And not to place too much emphasis on this, I can't say I was really wowed by much of the lyrics here at all, from the samples or the guest stars. It's not like the transcendent power of dance, finding love and connection in that space from a larger world that can feel so huge, and it probably culminates the strongest on the rattling, whistling pulse of the closer falling together, where, yeah, it's a little bit messy and ragged around the edges, and it doesn't take itself that seriously, but that's a big part of its charm and appeal. Let's be real, those are not new ideas or even themes for Jamie XX, but when delivered through more song-focused immediacy, the impact paradoxically kind of diminishes for me. Big ideas and moments, they don't feel as transcendent when they're stated so vigorously and obviously and basic. And when you also factor in that Jamie XX is way too tasteful and controlled and almost backwards looking in his choice of sampling and textures to really take a lot of risks, In Waves just does not feel as special to me. But again, these were all things I knew going in, and thus when I was able to recalibrate my brain to get on this wavelength, you know what, I wound up enjoying a decent amount of this project. The spare slow pianos and the chopped up sample on Oona that builds into the shuffling percussion, the soulful sample chops, and that gurgling bass synth on Treat Each Other Right. That's a really nice build to start off the project, although I will say that song showcases some of the metallic, quasi-hyperpop blending of the vocal samples that just do not click as well as it should have. Dafodil squanders it a lot more with that lush, soulful flip alongside of it for a minimalist vibe that just did not work for me at all. Then you have Waited All Night, where that was a fluttery The XX throwback by way of garage. And Baddy On The Floor as a single, it did eventually grow on me, even if it could afford to feel more lush. Honestly, the biggest letdown was Robyn vamping on the antiseptic, unstable groove and the canned horns of life that felt like a waste of her presence, and I really wish I could have cared more for the children's choirs chopped up with the Avalanches and All You Children, but the rote vocals and the squonking effects really put me off. Yet where I was most impressed were the grander pulses of Still Summer, with the touches of crowd noise and the fidgety groove, loosely echoed alongside the choppy vocal samples and that faster piano work on The Feeling I Get From You that builds into that faster, pulsating, borderline breakbeat techno with a killer switch up on Breather, and it feels like the most forward-thinking song on the entire project. But overall, You know, I guess this is how things come full circle, as Jamie XX helped me get into this style of electronic music, and now having heard so much more of it over a decade, this return just doesn't feel as euphoric or as special, or the louder insistence on the indoor dance floor vibes, it doesn't feel as unique. Where as much as Jamie XX is a terrific producer, he's also a traditionalist at heart, and here the dividends, they feel a bit more spotty. It's sadly where I actually get some of the more experimental electronic fans that may have scoffed at In Color for playing it safe. I think that's more apt of a criticism here. Now, I still think it's good, but I don't think it's stronger than Rami's album Midair last year, or that last project from the XX in 2017. But you know what, if you catch the wave, you'll probably enjoy it, but it might crash on the sand and wash away pretty quickly in the riptide. That's all. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Again, I can imagine this is going to be a bit of a contentious review. We will have to see how it all falls out there. But again, beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you want to get involved and help and support the channel, again, I normally point you towards my Patreon, but we have opened up YouTube memberships, which also allows, there's slightly some elements that enable some access to certain things, even some access to my schedule at the highest level. That's analogous to Patreon, given some of the hiccups I've experienced there. Happy to have you guys come on board, especially as it has a little bit more relevance given the new series I've launched, Bandwidth, which again, happens on Thursday nights. Happy to see all of you there if you get a chance. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.